shoot later on.
No, yeah, the ID was not valid, so I don't know why.
I know, but I was in the meeting with one of our external attendees,
Yeah.
and it was fine. And then none of you could go in. And then I left him in the meeting as host. I'm like, I'll be back. And I just restarted and I
It didn't work. Okay, so
couldn't make it work.
it's something with Zoom, so
Something with Zoom, but we're going to fix that afterwards.
yeah.
So for now, we are in this new location, which I'm just going to put on YouTube if he wants to join again. So sorry about the delay today. Unforeseen technical issues, but we're gonna get there. And I hope we
The
don't get
Eduardo fault. Yeah, for sure.
always.
It's
You
not.
need someone to blame. He's the
Yeah.
one.
It's him. Yeah. Why me? No, it's like
I
that.
didn't even hear what you said. Only heard my name and someone to blame.
That's the essence.
Come on.
Ooh, I also have a new layout. Okay. Anyways, Zoom is interesting today. But that's not the point, and we're 10 minutes late. So welcome to Neuroccino on this Monday morning. And without any further ado, Müge, if you want to take it away, I can see you already shared the link.
Yeah. Okay. Let me share my screen.
Be co-host, so you can share the screen. Is that working? Yes. Cool. Take it away.
Thank you. Okay, 1 second. Okay, let's make this bigger. Okay, so do you see my screen well?
Yep.
Is it big enough? Okay. So, okay, today I picked a paper from sociolinguistics research. It's semantic change in adults is not primarily a generational phenomenon. So this paper is from a group in McGill University. And so the basic question in this paper is that, is language change a generational phenomenon, or is it a zeitgeist phenomenon? So is it, the language changes from generation to generation, or it changes as like the spirit of the time? And by language change here, they focus on semantic change. So how, do words change meaning over time? And for example, the use of English like. So like can mean that you find something nice. It can mean, it can indicate similarity between two things. But like recently, it's being used as a quotative, word. Like you can quote someone saying, Müge be like, for example. So this is a new, meaning for this word. This paper focuses on understanding like how meanings change over time, but also how such changes are adopted by adult speakers of different ages. They say, when language change is in progress, so if older speakers preserve how they speak, if they don't change the way they speak, then language changes from generation to generation, right? But if they adapt to changes, if some language changes and all the members of the society adapt to this change at the same time, then it means that it's not a generation to generation change, but it's a zeitgeist phenomenon. So, yeah, and that's an important question in psycholinguistics. But in this paper, they mention this common technique that's used in psycholinguistics. It's called the apparent time construct. So what they do is they, for example, take a 20-year-old and then they take a 60-year-old, and then they look at how their languages differ, how their language use differ, and then they say that, okay, language changed this way in 40 years. But this type of method don't take it into consideration that people during their lifespan, they can also, change their language use. So the language is not fixed for a 20-year-old, and it's not fixed for a 60-year-old. So this type of method only looks at changes from generation to generation, but it doesn't consider take into account how language changes for a 20-year-old during their lifespan and for a 60-year-old during their lifespan. So and looking at previous work, actually some sort of language changes happens from generation to generation, and this is like more like phonetic language features. For example, they give an example of the Montreal R in Montreal French, the use of R. So it used to be an apical R, so you use the tip of the tongue to make the R sound, but over generations, now people use the back of their, it changed the dorsal R, so they use the back of their tongue to produce the sound R. But this, so for if you look into phonetic language features, that can be a generation to generation change. But in this case, they are looking into word meaning, semantic change. Okay. So a key barrier, they say, studying meaning change in relation to, to age, is that the lack of large-scale corpora, which has, like, when you look into text, you need the year of publication for that text, and then the age of speakers or age of authors for that text. And I think it was very interesting that as a corpora, they chose the political speeches, historical records of political speeches here. So they use the transcripts of all speeches made in the United States House of Representatives and United States Senate between the years like 1873 and 2010. So they focused on the corpora that enables to study text spoken in a consistent venue. So it's the chambers, the US Senate and House, and also across almost 140 years by several thousand speakers, and they all, their ages are all like recorded. So they have like 7.9 million speeches, and so they identified 100 words, and then they looked into how the words, meaning of these words changed. So they use natural language processing methods, word sense induction. So I was not familiar with this, but I looked it up. So it means, word sense induction in natural language processing is the task of automatically identifying and grouping different meanings or senses of a word from a collection of text without a predefined dictionary. So it's an unsupervised method, meaning it clusters word usages based on their context to discover new senses as they appear in the data. Okay, I hope this is a bit more clear. But basically, for example, if we look at this word articles here, article can have different senses. It has an object sense, which means, in this case, article means items, things, goods. It has a legal sense, meaning that article can mean like provisions, laws, acts, or it has a news sense, which means article can mean papers, stories, reports, right? And then when they look to the, how these words, these different senses were used over time for articles, for example, they see that in the beginning of the 20th century, when people say article in this, United States political speeches, when they said article, they most of the time meant the object article. But after the, towards the end of the century, when somebody said article, that they indicated most of the time the news, literary sense of the article. And then they looked at, other words like the word monitor, like in the early century, it is meant naval ship, but later it means like observe. And, they looked at 100 different words like that. And okay, so then, okay, and then they wanted to understand like probability that a particular sense is intended when the word is used by X speaker X in a year Y. Okay, so to calculate these probabilities, they used GAM functions. So GAM functions are generalized additive mix model functions. And then they created these heat maps. Okay, so this is a heat map for the word, article. So if it's like a green or yellow, it means that article is used to mean news, literature. And if it's like darker, it's less likely that it's used in this sense. And then we see the age here, and then we see the year on the y-axis. So we see that after like 1940s, it's most likely that when people say article, they mean the news literature. And then we see that the early, like the people in their 40s and like 30s, started to use article in that sense a bit earlier compared to people who are like 60 or 80 years old, right? So this shows us that people in their like 30s started using this new sense earlier, but people in their 80s also picked it up. So they didn't, they also adapted to this change a few years later, but they still adapted to this change. But in some cases, they see the opposite of this trend. So if the slope of these lines is like a positive slope, that means that people in their like younger people start the change maybe, but then older people pick up later. But if it's a negative slope, like here, for example, it's the opposite. The old people, start using the new sense, but then the younger generation, young people, pick it up later. So this was, for example, for the word satellite. Satellite can mean like can have an astronomical sense. So it might mean that an object, orbiting a planet in the astronomical sense, but satellite also has a geopolitical sense. So it can mean like a subordinate or a dependent country. So it turns out that this geopolitical sense was used earlier by the old generation, but then picked up by the younger generation. So this shows us, like this kind of study shows us how language trends start and picked up by different people of different ages. Okay, and then but on average they find that usually young people start using a new word meaning, and then on average in 3 years, the older generation also adapts to this change. So their data shows this. And here they also look at trends in people's lifespan. So they pick like 6 speakers from the US, Senate, and then they show that, for the word outstanding, for example, here outstanding, people use outstanding to mean still remaining, right? So the still remaining sense of the word was more popular at the beginning, but then it declined. And we see that it declined in these six different individuals throughout their lifespan. So What this paper shows us is that word meaning change, like this language change, word meaning change, is a zeitgeist phenomenon, and it's not a generational phenomenon. So it doesn't change from generation to generation. If a word changes meaning, this change is picked up by the members of the society at different ages. And this, usually young people adapt the change first, but then old people in a few years, they follow. And they show that this is opposite to language change in terms of like phonetic changes. They say phonetic change, there are lots of studies that show that after a critical period, like for example, after adolescence, it's very difficult for people to pick up new sounds and like change how they produce phonemes. So that's why like they say that it's important to start language at an early age so that you can pronounce words like a native speaker. But if you start learning that language after adolescence, it's really unlikely that you will sound like a native speaker, for example. In that case, like for phonetic change, language changes from maybe generation to generation, but in terms of word meaning change, people can learn new words or learn different meanings of new words throughout their life. So speakers' lexicons can remain flexible beyond traditionally held critical periods of language acquisition, they say. And then this study also shows that the apparent time construct methods does not capture these kind of changes that people show throughout their lives. And they also briefly mentioned some limitations in their study. So for instance, in this case, these political speeches were given by people who are between age 25 and 100. This is a huge age span, obviously, but it misses adolescence. And then they say that the adolescents are usually the drivers of linguistic change. They usually innovate the new language patterns. And also this data is confined to American English, it's political speech, and usually in the US Congress, women and ethnic minorities are underrepresented, so it doesn't, reflect the whole society. It's, in that sense, it's also a bit limited. Actually, I couldn't find out, maybe it's in the supplementary material somewhere, but I couldn't find out any information about the, ratio of women and different ethnic minorities in this data. But yeah, they mentioned this as a limitation. Anyway, so yeah, I thought this was interesting. So that's all.
Cool. Thank
from-
you, Mugen.
Sure.
I have to say, it's weird to see you all online again after having had the chance to see you in person last week. Right. Hervé has a question for you. Let's start with that one.
Yes, the first question. Thank you for the presentation. So I was wondering, so when you talked about the limitation of the papers, that I was thinking that, for example, in France, we have a language institute that control what people should use. And I was checking in the US, it's not the same thing. But I'm still wondering if there is some constraint that can limit the progression of the language, such as the educational system at a period of time, the community where the people live, even the different immigration phases during the history of the country, and also the political system. Everything, I think, matters, but I don't know if they talked about it.
No, yeah, they just mentioned this as the limitation, because people in Congress must have like similar education levels, right? They have high education, and yeah, as they said, like the minorities, immigrants are not represented enough. So they just, yeah. But it's just, they just say that it's difficult to find a corpus that has, you know, these kind of text speeches. And then, you know, usually the age of the speakers are not known. So this is a very like well-established structured data that they can access to these people's ages and the exact time of when the speech was given. So, yeah. But it's a nice technique. But like if there were like more a corpus that has more like diverse inputs, that you know, implementing these methods would be very interesting.
Yeah, to generalize to other population, yeah, that will be really. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Eduardo, take it away.
Hey, Muge. Thanks
Hi.
for presenting. I have a similar question, actually, because I was wondering whether, like, the fact of I understand the limitations, of course, but like analyzing the corpus derived from like a very specific political like group, like the Senate. I wonder whether it's not like automatic that, you know, if a subgroup starts to use a certain word in a certain way, then everybody has to kind of pick it up because it's like a jargon that has to be used within the chamber itself so that people can understand what other people are saying. So like the change of like how words are used might be artificially changed, like because of the dynamics that are required for like something like that to work.
I think they so they mentioned some point that common words, like very common words, don't change their like meaning over time so much. But they refer to other papers when they, you know, because they picked 100 words. Those words must be like critical somehow, and then they don't really they refer to other papers like describing how they picked these words. But the examples that they give is not didn't sound like a Congress jargon to me, like you know, they
Okay.
the article monitor, you know that.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because my second follow-up question was, I don't know if there are examples of these, but whether, because as you mentioned, like more common words tend not to change. And I was wondering, for example, if you have like technical words, and if you have like, you know, technological revolutions or technological changes happening at a certain time, then it's not really up to people to decide whether they use a word in a certain way or another. It's just that, you know, what's available in the world is changing and you just have a name to just track that, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I think they also mentioned this in the limitations. So I think you're saying that cultural change is also in parallel to language change. So you cannot really disentangle this cultural change from like the language change. Yeah, they also mentioned this as a limitation, but yeah.
Yeah. And isn't that like among the hypotheses that they use? Because I was a bit surprised that you presented and were like, oh, it's either the spirit of time or it's a generational thing where it's, you know, common sense would suggest that it's a very dynamic process that's changing depending on a lot of factors. So why to narrow it down to one single
Yeah,
single
those are the
approach?
two models. So they at the beginning they say that these are the two models, like generational change versus zeitgeist change are the two models that we're you know, focusing on comparing here. But there may be other you know, changes too. I don't know what they would be like they other models too. But these two are the, I think what they focus on, I think, and also majority of language research focus on this generation to generation changes. So yeah, that's why they focus on these two. But yeah, I cannot think of what other kinds of language changes like it's not can be in progress. Yeah.
Yeah, no, yeah,
Yeah,
talking
this
semantics is a
yeah,
pain. Yeah, so
sociolinguistics research is also new to me, but I yeah.
yeah, well, thanks for presenting.
This is something that I, you know, keep thinking about with the, you know, use of social media, like just like every day we hear a new like usage of a word, so it's just Yeah, that was just interesting to me.
Yeah, I mean, I bet nowadays you get like different like vocabularies depending on the age range and depending on the social platform, like the social media platform that the different like age ranges would use.
Mhm.
It's
Yeah.
also that new words and new meanings for words are spreading way faster than they used to.
Mhm.
And we recently looked into this last year, and it seemed that this was driven by women on social media communicating across the globe. So words spread way faster
Oh.
than back in the days when new words had to be introduced in a book. The book had to spread around. So there's quite a huge degree of dynamic change as well.
Yeah, it's interesting that it's women, not like teenagers, right? Because
I
they're
mein,
communicating
I can't
constantly.
remember the age.
Okay.
Could have been young woman.
Mhm.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I was wondering if they mentioned anything about the mechanisms in that paper as to how that shift is introduced.
Maybe they were all linguists.
No, yeah, I think
How's that an answer?
yeah, how it emerges, yeah, like at where it emerges first up. I don't know. They don't talk about that. No,
Okay.
they
And
don't.
I see the point for the data set they use, because you have effectively timestamps, you have everything recorded. It's beautiful from a scientific methods perspective. But at the same time, and you alluded to a lot of the limitations in the data set, but especially political speeches are extremely close to the zeitgeist, right? Like by definition, they're aligned. It's not like spontaneous speech where you may use words randomly or have picked up words from the other generation. Like those speeches are very targeted.
Yeah, they also, the topics are also very like relevant to that particular time period. Yeah.
Exactly. And that could also simply drive a shift in the semantic meaning of words, right? Where if there is a specific topic at a given time that conceptualizes a word in that framework, then obviously everyone will use the word to mean that. But that's not necessarily that the meaning has changed. It's just that the topic of conversation has changed.
Yeah. No, that's true.
But interesting study nonetheless. Thanks for sharing it. Thanks for presenting.
Yeah, thank you.
And we're kind of on time despite being 10 minutes late due to technical issues.
Did I rush? I wasn't aware, but yeah. Yeah, we did.
No, it was well paced. I quite enjoyed it.
Okay.
Good to see you all. Have an exciting week in science. See you next Monday. Bye.
Okay, bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.